Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book that's come to us from Edward Elgar Publishing. They are very prominent publishers of research material in law and also practitioner books to a certain extent. This is from the Elgar Tax, Law and Practice series of books. The title of the book is International Exchange of Information in Tax Matters, and it's got a subtitle, Towards Global Transparency, now in a third edition, and it's been written by Professor Oberson. Now the book is basically a hardback, which we'll look at in a second. It's also now available as an eBook. Elizabeth was the lead writer on this particular review, and her title for the review is An Insightful and Information-Rich Examination of Key Issues in Global Taxation, now in a new third edition. Let's have a look at the book first of all, shall we? Here it is, you can just see it here. Hardback there we go. There's the spine, and then you can see, probably you won't really be able to make out much of what's on the back, but obviously it's quite a lot of information about the book itself. There's inside the book, what we have got is an index, which you can see quite clearly there. The index is by paragraph numbering. It's quite a detailed index in many respects. Obviously it does deal to a certain extent with the various countries that are involved. There's the index there. Let's move that over. And then you've got the back, a general bibliography. Very, very useful, because one of the things I've always liked about Elgar's books is the fact that they really are very, very well researched throughout. And there's a lot of, you see here, general bibliography, starting off with books and then articles and so on. I think it's extremely helpful to have all of the detail that you're looking at. The back of the book, you can see the paragraph numbering at the sides, and then obviously the page numbering at the bottom. If we run through from the back all the way through, there is some footnoting. You can see some of the footnoting. A little bit of detail. Remember, the key with reading any book is you read the whole of the text. You don't look at the footnotes. You use those for specific reference materials. Right, here's the front of the book. And you can see Professor Oberson is from Professor of Law, University of Geneva, Switzerland. That's the series, the Elgar Tax, Law and Practice series, listed there. Number of books in there. Then you've got the content section. You can see there are 18 chapters in total. And then there's the index, the bibliography index. Then there's an extended content section, which I've always found very helpful, because if you're looking for particular things, it's either the detailed contents or the index at the back, which is what will give you the information you're looking for. We've also, because of the nature of this subject, we have to, I think, have an abbreviations section, and I'm very glad that we do, because it's so easy to forget what some of these abbreviations stand for. Then you've got the table of cases, and you see how they're structured. Very useful. International and then national. Then you've got tables of legislation, and then after that, I'll just get to the end of that. The legislation actually has national and international legislation towards the back. It also actually has, to go with it, the articles and directives, all sort of covered under the general term of legislation, but it's there. Then we get to the subject itself. There we go. Chapter 1, you see the structure, the paragraph numbering at the side, a little bit of footnoting, and it talks about the power to levy taxes is one of the key features of the sovereignty of states. And it starts off from there. So we know where we are, and as we all know, we all get taxed. So put the book there. Now, this is what we say about the book. In a global economy fueled by the ubiquity of the internet, exchange of information on tax matters, especially between professionals globally, has predictably become the norm. And a complex and diverse area of expertise this actually is. Yes, all the more reason, therefore, that this authoritative text from Edward Elgar has appeared. It's been acknowledged internationally that Elgar are a very special type of publisher. Obviously there are standard works concerning this subject in what is a complicated area of law, and I think Elgar excelled well. Small wonder then that the publication, this particular one, has come out in a third edition, thoroughly and extensively revised. And the author is Xavier Oberson. I may not have pronounced his name correctly because I don't really know how to pronounce some of these names, and I apologise if I have it wrong. He's a professor of law at Geneva, and he's become well known for his almost panoramic and at the same time detailed viewpoint on what is an increasingly important area, an aspect of taxation. Quote, as I said, the power to levy taxes is one of the key features of the sovereignty of states. And he starts off commenting that modern states have tended to move towards more global systems of taxation, notably on worldwide income tax. And that is, I think, basically the state of where we're moving towards. Things to come in the future, probably. Very much an international stage for quite a lot of things, but it depends very much, of course, on the international circumstances of the time. But we are now in very much of a global economy, and it makes sense, therefore, to see that sort of thing will happen. And of course, elaborating on his argument, Oberson also points out that parallel to this development, globalization led to an effort to develop instruments to combat international tax frauds and evasion. I think that's very well put, because fraud is one of the biggest problems internationally that we have. It makes up well over 40% of crime in England and Wales alone, and is actually a major problem because the enforcement agencies have absolutely no idea what they're dealing with, and not much interest either, I hasten to add, because they don't see it as a crime in the sense of a bank robbery or a murder or something, and therefore they don't attach the sort of significance that fraud actually has, which is devastating. Now, of course, there is much more that emerges from the book concerning these issues, and that's the need for the value we have here of the insights and information on this diverse topic, which is elucidated in the book. Certainly the book offers an historic perspective on, for example, technological developments and issues of public policy in this particular area of law. Now, I say that because technological developments are where the fraud actually is, if you think about it, and that's really where the problems are. Now, what we've got then is the latest developments described, quote, as increased global transparency in tax matters, which of course is what is going to happen. It may take a lot longer than we think, but it's certainly going to take place, I believe. That will include new rules of information exchange and the use of digital platforms for reporting. And I say here, now putting the legal thing into play, that when we talk about information exchange, we're talking about disclosure. That's what we mean in practical terms. It doesn't use those words, but I say that that's what it actually means. It's also important, I think, to note something else, and that is the chapter on crypto assets and cryptocurrencies, which tells you all you need or may have needed to know about these and related matters. Now, what both Elizabeth and I say, we say that it includes the widespread disquiet concerning their legality, because it is the view of many, and is certainly my view, that the people who are using these types of currency are criminals. They are nothing more than criminals, and they're actually stealing an asset, which is in this case a currency possibly. And I say that there's time for international action on it. Obviously it's not in the book, but when you're looking at international tax sharing and disclosure, you would think that they would be looking straight away, the individual countries, at crypto assets and cryptocurrency. Obviously, we know where the frauds are taking place. I'm not mentioning any countries because Russia would never come to mind. But what I would say is that we know who the leading actors are in this particular stage play. Now, the recent crypto crash, which took place in early 2023, is one in which billions were lost, which could not be too surprising for those who knew what was going on. Because somewhere is making a lot of money. We might call them oligarchs, we might call them anything you want, but you can bet anything that there are a few people making a great deal of money at the expense of everybody else. And it's got nothing to do with politics, it's just sheer greed. And of course, and complete and utter inaction by governments across the world. And that's one of the areas that will have to be looked at in this century. Now, I think it's to bring everything together, let's talk just again about the book. It's simple to navigate. It provides a useful guide to further research with a lot of detail. And there's obviously the heavy content sections and the 14-page bibliography at the back with a very useful list of the references that have been referred to, plus official documents and reports. There's also additional research referencing which appears in the index, which I found helpful. And I think you all should also see that the tables of cases and of legislation, plus the extensive footnoting and the numbered paragraphs throughout, are very much the style, the house style of Edward Elgar. So I would thank everybody concerned for this book, because it's certainly fair to say that lawyers, especially tax practitioners and specialists, as well as the financial professionals, will find this book invaluable. And the date of publication is cited at the earlier part of 2023. Let me just show you the book again. There it is, an important book. And people think it's probably boring, but it isn't actually when you get into it, because you realise a lot of what they're talking about in this book is what we are actually facing. Let's go into you see the EU directives are there. You can forget about all these Brexit people and the nonsense concerning the leaving of the European Union by Britain. But we've still got the directives, and we've still got the need, whether in fact we have a link with Europe through the Union or not, we've still got to deal with these fundamental issues. And there are a whole range. Automatic exchange of information is another chapter. Again, very important, because the exchange, this is actually disclosure, as I say, and I think it's important to be aware of what is required. So a very big thank you to the Professor and to Elgar for continuing to give us these excellent books. You make our lives so much easier. Thank you. Bye-bye.